Welcome to Riga Edu-Cast. In today's episode, we're going to be diving into the real experience of the IB DP program and how to thrive, survive, and strive for excellence. Our focus today is going to be on covering balance between kind of academics, personal life, overcoming language barriers, and how to get ready for the program. Joining us today, we've got 3 ISR students from grade 10, grade 11, and grade 12 who are going to share their experiences and insights at different stages of the program along the way. For today, I'm going to be your moderator and host. Ms. Fenato is my name, and I'm ISR's new MYP coordinator, and I teach the DP Geography and Theory of Knowledge. Being risk takers alongside me in this, I'm going to get them to introduce themselves in a moment here about how long they've been at ISR, their nationalities, how long they've been in international schools, and just kind of anything else you guys want to talk about. So we're going to go from youngest to oldest. So we're going to start with our grade 10 student, Vivian.
My name is Vivian. I am from South Korea. I've been at ISR for 2 years now, and I've been in an international school for approximately 6 years.
Fantastic. And joining Vivian today, we have Daniels from grade 11.
So hello, my name is Daniels, as she mentioned. I've been at this school for 13 years, I believe, since preschool 2. Yeah, it's quite a lot, I know, quite a journey as well. I'm Latvian, born in Switzerland though, and yeah, just here for the ride.
Fantastic. And last but not least, our most recent graduate, grade 12 student, Maxim.
Hello, my name is Maxim. I'm a current grade 12 student and also a graduate from the class of 2024 here at the International School of Riga. I have graduated just a few weeks ago in the beginning of June, and I have spent 6 years at ISR. And I'm very happy to be on this podcast sharing insights and lessons I have learned throughout the International Baccalaureate program.
Amazing. So as you can see, we've got 3 students and 1 teacher here, hoping that we can maybe share some insight into what the program's actually like. The format today is just going to be a conversation. So we're going to have a chat. We're going to be as honest as we feel comfortable being. And hopefully you might learn something along the way. So we are going to go into our first segment, which is kind of an icebreaker, get us talking as if we've not talked all day. But we're going to begin with some kind of quick questions. The goal of these, remember, is just kind of give me your first impressions or give us kind of your first insights into the question. We're going to start the questions and we're going to kind of go this way. So Daniels, you'll start first, then Maxim, then Vivian. Okay. So first quick fire question. You have a test coming up. What's the snack that's at your desk to help you study?
Coffee.
Okay.
Caffeine all the way.
Caffeine all the way?
For me, I would say it has to be something refreshing, maybe a piece of chocolate to activate my mind and to help me think more clearly.
Okay.
I would say coffee and biscuits.
Coffee and biscuits. All right. Team coffee is showing up strong here. You get to school and you need to find a spot to study. Where are you going?
Downstairs by the lobby.
Downstairs lobby?
For me, it is definitely the small rooms in the V3 high school campus. They have helped me a lot over the past 2 years. I have finished homework in those rooms. I have attended meetings. It's a perfect place to focus and concentrate.
I do like those rooms too, yeah.
Since I'm a grade 10 student, my class is mostly in V9, so I go to the library and study because usually it's empty.
That is a good point. All right. Next one. You all are studying different things, but what subject was surprisingly fun to study? And I'm just going to put a warning out here. There were no bribes before these answers, so honest answers.
It's funny you mention that because I'd say TOK.
Haha, yes.
For me, it has to be geography, partially because Miss F is my teacher, but also because it is so fun and it has so many different projects and lessons to learn.
I like global perspective.
For sure not bribed, right?
Definitely not bribed.
But it's really fun. I like the board games you do and I like writing essays in the classes as well.
Thank you. Oh, that just makes me feel special. All right, let's go to the opposite one, though. You have the ability to banish a subject, never to be studied again. Which subject are you banishing?
Chemistry, biology, physics.
Oh, team science is gone.
Except computer science though.
For me, it has to be mathematics. I remember from the first grade of school, mathematics has never been easy for me. I had experience of sitting in the kitchen with my mom trying to understand those problems and equations from the textbook, and it has been like that for the past 12 years, so it has to be mathematics.
Uh-huh.
I would say math too. I hate math.
Team math, team science. I'm sorry. But let's talk about a different one. Let's talk about some advice. Maybe what's the best piece of advice you've gotten about managing things at school or just in life in general? What's a good piece of advice you've gotten?
I'd say manage your time really wisely and kind of deal with your procrastination, or at least know what cues kind of force you to go into procrastination and try and eliminate them. Because IB is all about kind of managing your time and doing a lot of subjects, essays, IAs, tests, exams. So I'd say just as soon as you get a sort of piece of work, just do it instantly in school. If not, then straight after school, because it will compound after time if you don't. Personal experience.
I'm going to come back to you about that because, yeah, we're going to have a conversation about that in a minute. Maxim, what about for you?
For me, actually, funny enough, the best piece of advice about managing coursework comes from the host of this podcast, Miss F, and it sounds as make good choices. This phrase is really powerful, and we have heard about it a lot during the IB, and it can even be applied to life in general. Making good choices in terms of time management, as Daniel's mentioned, or anything else is super important, and IB is not an exception.
Okay.
I would also say time management because I really am horrible at managing time, and a lot of teachers told me good advices on how I should be studying. Like that, for example, our English teacher told me about how I should study 50 minutes, take a 5-minute break, something like that. And just while studying, I think it's a really good tactic.
I do like that tactic. And we're going to come back and talk about that tactic in a little bit here. We're going to hit the last quick fire question, which is who's somebody you look up to and why are they the person you look up to?
Miss a ball from our school because I relate to her in a lot of ways, and especially after our trip to Thailand for the World Scholars, we kind of talked on a more deeper level there, and I understood the like very similar life aspirations and also kind of perspective on the world and also on finances. So yeah, it's just how she did the things that she did at that age, like 20, university, all that stuff, just inspiring, and I want to go somewhat the same, taking away the same lessons that she gave me.
Awesome. What about for you, Maxim?
For me, the answer has to be my parents. They are the people who always lead by example and who had a lot of influence on who I am today and what actions I take on daily basis. So it has to be my parents.
That's a good one. Well, Vivian, what about for you?
I would say my parents as well. Well, they raised me, number one. They birthed me, and they, as I grew up, they really tried their best to lead me to the right path, and I really, really, really appreciate them for doing it, and I look up to them.
Amazing. Okay. Well, thank you for your answers. And hopefully now that we're kind of like warmed up a little bit and the conversation's not too scary, we're going to take a moment and move on to part one. And we're going to start talking a little bit about what you've heard about the IBDP and what are kind of like the horror stories and the highlights and all of those things. And just kind of as a refresher, I know we talked a little bit about the program and how it works in episode 2. So if you haven't seen episode 2 yet, just kind of quick refresher and then join us back here so you can hear Vivian's answer to what you're looking forward to and what kind of things have you heard about the IB.
Well, I heard it's a very scary curriculum. I heard a lot of people struggle with it, and especially the subject that I chose, it's also known as Hellgate,
Mm-hmm.
because there's so many.
Do you mind just explaining to the groups and to the audience what that one means?
Um, I chose physics and math and chemistry, HL. And
Yeah, I think the term was pretty
and,
accurate.
and I was talking to Miss, our IB coordinator, about it, and she said it's going to be really hard, and our physics teacher agreed that it would be hard. And I kind of expected for the IB to be a little bit easier than what I was doing in Korea, but after looking at the curriculum and things like that, I think I was wrong. I should have thought about the subjects a bit more before I chose it.
Well, thankfully you still got some time, right? Like, so you get that little bit of a trial period at the beginning,
Yeah,
right?
I kind of need them so can really so can really change it. But to prepare for it, I went to teachers during office hours, and very kind of them, really. They showed me the textbooks for the IB, and some teachers even gave me some study materials I could do over the summer
Oh, wow. Okay.
that I can kind of keep up, because IB moves really quickly, I heard. Like, everything goes like that.
Does that sound accurate, guys?
Oh yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Certainly.
And most of the topics is very unfamiliar to me. I've never heard of any of them, to be honest. So I am skimming through the textbooks and finding like past papers and trying to like solve a few of them right now.
If you're worried about kind of like the subjects that you picked, you can switch them like roughly a couple weeks in.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, the major I want to go, or any university that I want to go, I kind of requires me to take the 3 subjects I'm
Okay,
taking. I
then
can't really like shape shift the things.
And that's the tricky thing, right? Trying to figure out how do you get to those
Mm.
universities and those programs and reach those similar expectations, right? Maxim, you know a little bit about that, right? Trying to get ready for your classes and figuring out universities and things.
Yeah, absolutely. You always have to stay up to date with the university requirements. When you study, you always look forward to, especially in grade 12, you're all about university applications, and you have to always keep that in the back of your mind.
Yeah. Well, based on what Vivian's telling us, like when we get to grade 10, there's a little bit of nerves, suspicions, stories that perhaps are passed down from grade 11 and grade 12. What are your thoughts, Daniel? You've been in the program now for a year.
yeah, I mean it's definitely what you described it as it is, but I'd say it's a bit over dramatized, even I'd say, because like a lot of our teachers in grade 10 when I was in your class, they kept saying like, oh, IB is like this, and you won't have any free time, and it'll be this hard, etc. And I just kind of thought to myself at your age, like, why are they scaring us? First of all, I think that's a bit, unnecessary. But second of all, like it can't be that difficult. And going in right now in grade 11, sorry, it's not that difficult. I mean, it is difficult for sure, but there's no light without dark, right? Nothing good comes without a little bit of pain. But it's not as crazy as you think it is. Just if you have your time management skills done and everything else, then you should be kind of set.
What do you think, Maxim? Fair assessment? Or is he waiting into the darkness that's coming up in grade 12?
Actually, looking back, I would say that IB made me realize that everything is possible. And once you complete it, you realize that it has not been easy, but it is totally doable. I would say maybe for Daniel's grade 12 is a little bit more difficult than grade 11, and you have less free time, it is more busy. But nonetheless, once you complete everything and you're finished, you realize that everything is possible.
Yeah, why do you think that is that grade 12 suddenly we get this like really busy period between like October, December
Yeah,
that you get to look forward to?
yeah. Actually, for me, the most busy period has been between August and December of my senior year. And the reason for that is just a lot of deadlines, a lot of projects at the same time, overlapping multiple deadlines, internal assessments, other coursework pieces, and at the same time you have your university applications, which you begin to complete, you begin to work on, and you have to manage all of that at the same time. Once you get to the new year, it becomes a bit more relaxed. You still have a few pieces of coursework to finish, but it is mostly about the exams that are coming up in May. But over the period of those months between August and December, you really have to work, write a lot of essays, and just complete everything step by step.
Let's switch it up here a little bit. So I know you've kind of had some time, Maxim, to reflect on like the programs and experiences and thinking about kind of moving forward in your journey. What do you think is something that the IB program has done like a good job of preparing you for? Like what was something at the beginning of the program or even before the program that you weren't super confident with, but now you feel like you've mastered as you've gone through?
Yeah, actually, I feel like IB is a great preparation for university. It is a very holistic approach. Even my parents are watching from the side and they keep telling me that it is very useful for you. They can see, having been to university, they can see how I can use those skills at university. And I have actually started to look into some courses and tasks that I can expect in university. And I can already see that I have done many of those things in IB over the 2 years. So I would say just in general, the combination of skills that IB has matches what you can expect in university, and it helps you to be more prepared. It helps you to feel more ready when entering the new chapter of your life.
Okay. None of us in this room are experts on time management. None of us here are giving the best advice. We're going to be honest, or as honest as we can be, about how we balance and manage the differences between school, our jobs, if we have jobs, or our extracurriculars and things like that. So let's talk strategies. Let's talk about some methods that we have. We're at the end of the academic year, right? And so I don't know about you guys, but for me, I always make new academic year's resolutions. So rather than like January 1st, it's usually like the first day of school. I'm like, okay, this year I'm going to be doing this, right? Or this year I'm going to try and make sure I do this. And one of mine this year was actually to balance my time or manage my time a little bit better. But by this time of the year, you're supposed to reflect on whether you made that goal. And I will have to say I didn't make my goal. But do any of you guys do that? Or do you have kind of like goals you set for yourself at the beginning of the year, and then by this time of the year, you kind of decide on it? What do you think, Daniel?
I wouldn't say like year-wise, but I kind of do like a to-do list every day in the morning. That way, kind of you get more stuff done, and also kind of puts you into some form of discipline to go through that stuff. That even if you don't want to do it, if you don't feel like doing it, you're still gonna do it because it needs to be done.
So the to-do list method. What about for you, Maxim?
Yeah, I'm also a fan of systems similar to Daniel's. I like to have a clear task management system implemented. I like to use Notion, especially the calendar format. For each day, I put certain tasks that I need to complete, and it helps me to stay more productive. It guides me and makes me know beforehand what I will be working on rather than thinking what I should do or when I should do it. I already know what I have to do and when I will be doing it.
You showed that to me at the beginning of the school year, and I think it's one of the coolest things. Where did you come across that?
I just tried out multiple task management, time management apps, but in the end, I realized that the best tool for me is something simple. So I made my own template, you can say, in Notion, and I have been using it all over the IBDP and beyond for my personal projects and other activities. And it just helps me to structure my day-to-day schedule and be more efficient.
Awesome. What about for you, Vivian? What's kind of your method?
Well, I have a few that I use. Well, I have what Daniel said, I have a to-do list that I write after I come back from home, from school. And then I write what I want to do in a day. And then I see how many I did. And also I have a whiteboard in my room so that I can write the deadlines of each assignment so that I don't forget. It's like visualized in my room. So every single time I go into my room, I see that there's the deadline, and so I do it. And also while I study, I have a timer. I have 2 timers so that, like as I mentioned before, the Pomodoro method, I think it's called, so that I don't overwhelm myself while studying.
That's a really good strategy. That's one I wish I'd known, because I was a big fan of just sit at a desk until whatever hour of night and just pray I got something done.
Yeah, that's what I used to do, but it really stressed me and I wasn't in the best healthy like state. So after experiencing that physically and mentally, I figured I need something more healthier. So
So what is the system that you mentioned? How's it called?
Pomodoro
That's
method.
that 15 minutes on, 5 minutes off
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
method. Yeah.
familiar. It's a good one.
I do like that one. Now I've learned about it. I've got some teachers from our school who've kind of been really active in promoting that. I'm starting to do it myself. I just need more discipline in setting the timers. It kind of gets me wondering about the priority we put on extracurriculars then, right? Like a lot of the time we always are like school, school, school. It's really important. IB, we've got to study all the time. but you guys have all mentioned you do stuff outside of school too. So how do you balance that? And like, what's the value you see in extracurriculars?
I'd say extracurriculars. I mean, for me personally, sport like kind of helps me keep like my mental sort of capacity well, right? When I go to the gym in the morning before school, I feel kind of refreshed, energized, etc. Or when I go boxing in the evening as well, I feel like kind of it's an end to the day. I can now relax after doing all the work. But also kind of IB, I just want to mention that IB helps you set up for life in general, I think, because like doing from all the businesses that I've had and I'm running right now, IB has already helped me kind of develop sort of networking possibilities. Because going to World Scholars in Thailand or Milan MUN, you have to kind of socialize with people you don't know and strangers from other countries, and it gives you kind of a very fresh perspective, which also helped me in business and also even in sports.
Okay. What do you think, Maxim?
Yeah, I can add on to that. Having those outside of school activities is incredibly useful, even for your studying. You might think that I should study more, I would rather spend those hours studying, but in reality, what happens to me is I do something that is not related to studying. I come back to studying and I feel even more productive during my studies. For instance, I noticed that when I have less time at my hands, I am even more productive. For example, if I go to training and I only have a few hours to complete a certain task, I can be more focused rather than procrastinating for the whole evening if I stay at home and just study. So having those extra activities helps you to be more productive and make more of your time.
Okay. What about for you, Vivian?
Well, I don't do any outside of school activities, partially because I thought it was a waste of time until now. But after hearing Maxim and Daniels, I think it's a good idea to have one to have, you know.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be kind of sports, or it doesn't have to be like there's lots of different things. Like you mentioned doing like debate or MUN and like this World Scholars. And I think like lots of people have different things. Like I know some of our students are really into music and they like do music after school or they have clubs that they go to. And so part of that is kind of getting to what's called like the healthy balance, which is something the IB says we should be striving for. And again, not experts. When we talk about healthy balances and like making sure that we're not just getting our education or our physical needs, but also those social and kind of mental needs as well. So, right, having that balance is not just between the three components, but also finding that other one. So, do you find you have time with the IB for social components?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even if I don't, I make the time, right? Um, like if I really want to, I will. I'll go out and socialize because I understand that you have to have a break from studying or also even from work and anything else not related to school. And coming back to what you said, Vivian, like before you thought that extracurriculars are not that important or like that they're useless. Think about like if you go after so you graduate high school, you go to university, right? And also after university, perhaps you get a job or something like that. If you only focus on university and only focus on the job, it will kind of wear you out emotionally, mentally, all that stuff. So you have to have something outside of your main vacation or vocation, you could say, to keep you kind of fresh and also entertained at the same time.
I think that's a really important point, right? It keeps everything in perspective. Do you agree, Maxim? What do you think?
Yeah, I think Daniel said it very precisely. You really need those things that help you take your mind off studying. And to add on to what you said about university life and job environment, those activities help you to build your resume, build your portfolio, and when you graduate school, if you have been involved in outside of school activities, you realize that you don't only have your diploma that you graduate with, but you also have other assets such as business or resume or connections, networking. So, in addition to all the academic side of things, it is very important to have that other component that you can use later in your career.
It kind of makes you stand out amongst the crowd or kind of shows that you can balance a couple of different things. I know that was one of the pieces of advice my family really prioritized for me was saying anybody can go to high school, anybody can try to do the IB diploma, anybody can, do these things, but what makes you different than the next person in line? And that was something that really stuck with me was like, how is it that you make yourself stand apart from people? What is it that you do that makes you happy or keeps you motivated or keeps you organized? And for me, that's always been a really important thing, is in that balance is finding out what's something fun or enjoyable or different that you can bring to a table. And I know when we talk about universities in just a little bit here that that's going to be something I'm sure we're going to cover again, which is what makes you stand out.
Yeah.
But I know about time and we got to move on, and I love the conversation, guys. We're doing a good job here, but I'm getting to my favorite section, which is action and reaction. So let's talk about real world situations. And if you've been in my TOK class, and you just went through one right before we started recording, so you get to join in the fun. Real world situations is where we actually get to see how we would respond to different situations, and how we apply all of the things we've been talking about, and seeing how you'd react. And it's quite normal to assume that studying in kind of a new language can be challenging. I know that if I had to switch over and go to Latvian school or even into French, which I kind of know, that'd be a really difficult challenge for me. But I know I've had all of you actually long enough to know where your English was when I first met you to where our English is now. And perhaps Maxim's English might be more technically correct than my own at this point. Um, but what do you think the experience is having come into this program, which is very English language heavy? What do you feel about the program for that?
Well, I came into preschool too when I was like 5 or 6, right? And I was fully Latvian. I didn't know much English. It was hard at first, like anything is, but then afterwards, like, because you're surrounded with your environment, and I believe that you're the sum of 5 people you spend your time most with. In the school, if everybody's talking in English, then you're gonna learn it sooner or later. And it's not as hard as other languages because English is first of all used by everybody almost. I'd like to say 99%. And it's not like very difficult in terms of tenses and all this stuff. So it kind of comes naturally, but more not from my experience. Like I have a friend in my class who came here last year, and he didn't speak much English at all. It was very choppy. And now after 1 year, he very easily picked it up just because we kept practicing with him, talking to him in English instead of his own language. And yeah, it was just kind of transitioning into it isn't as hard as you'd think.
Hmm. What do you think, Vivian? Is that fairly accurate?
Yeah, I think so because my experience of learning English was survival English, as I like to call it, because my first experience speaking English when I was in England. I used to live in England for the majority of my preschool. I did not speak a single word of English. The only word I ever knew was hello until I graduated elementary school. But I think I have to agree with Daniels because it's England. Everybody speaks good English, really good, even the teachers. And though it wasn't an international school, there were a lot of international school like people, and they kind of taught me some, the tactics they learned that were helpful while using and learning English when living in England. So after after I came to Latvia, I think those kind of tactics helped me a lot. And honestly, language barrier, it's hard to overcome. I still struggle. I still stutter a lot. But speaking English every day with your peers or seniors, teachers, I think helps a lot.
Hmm. Fantastic. What do you think, Maxim?
Yeah, I would add that the environment is very important and very helpful at the same time. Once you're in the zone of English-speaking communities, it is much easier to learn the language. This is what happened to me when I joined the school in grade 6. My English was not the best, and due to being in this environment for 8 hours a day during school with teachers, classmates, I was able to pick up, and after some time, it just feels normal. And actually, the same happened to me with Latvian. Just living in Latvia, not learning it in terms of courses or lessons, just by visiting shops, listening to the radio, and so on, you just pick it up due to being in the environment of that language. And in terms of the IB, the more you do it, the more first-hand experience you have, the easier it gets over time. Maybe your first essay would not be the best, but you have so many of them ahead. You will be able to practice and master and get better and better over time.
Hmm. Do you find like sometimes the technical words that we learn in like school, it's kind of hard to translate them back into your native languages or trying to explain at home, kind of like because the technical words are in English, but the like and how you describe them would be in different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Because like Latvian, I used to speak Latvian before I came to school, like as my primary language. Now, even though I'm Latvian, my primary language is English. I even think in English, all this stuff, and like using words which are kind of more extravagant or something, if you want to call it that. You're not used to using it in Latvian, well, for me personally. And then you kind of come home, you want to start talking about some very smart topics and stuff with your mom or dad, and then you just kind of hit the language barrier backwards. It's kind of like a reverse cycle. So yeah.
No, I find that that's sometimes the case too. It's like I know the word, right? And it's here, like I have the word, I have it in multiple varieties, but I just don't have the one that I need for this particular scenario. Um, anybody else get that feeling? Where it's just like you have it, but you can't quite find that word.
Yeah, absolutely. Even when my parents, for example, ask me to translate something, everything is super clear in my mind, but actually explaining it to them in a different language and having that mix of vocabulary becomes challenging. I can understand what I'm reading and I can comprehend everything, but actually telling them what it is in proper words, I think is quite similar to your situation, is a bit of a challenge sometimes.
Yeah. Do you feel like having people in your community, like in your classes, speaking the same language, like having two of the same languages, so somebody who speaks English and Latvian is sometimes easier because you can switch between both? Or do you find that it actually is more difficult because you now have to kind of switch brains almost? What do you think or feel?
I wouldn't say that's such a big issue for me personally because, well, I speak like three languages pretty well, I'd like to think, and all my friends speak the same languages practically. So we kind of just switch from time to time in school, and then we get told off by some certain teachers, switch the language. We're in an English school, and then we do. But I don't think it's like a big of a problem because it's really more conversational speaking. It's not like, subject talk or anything.
Yeah, it's not the heavier academic stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're going to move on to talking about my favorite section, which is not more action and reaction, but goals and aspirations. This is my favorite thing to talk about with students. And I think it's one of my favorite things because I love hearing about the adventures you're looking forward to and the things that we prepare you for in school, but like, what do you actually want to do with them? So just to give a little bit of context, the IBDP is a curriculum, right? It's supposed to prepare you for university, but it's also meant to kind of prepare you for different paths or different journeys or different experiences that you're going to have along the way. And it's supposed to kind of give you the ability to work in different like work settings, but also be entrepreneurial. It's also supposed to be rigorous, but also allow you to critically think. I'm saying all this. Do we feel like that's accurate to what our experiences have been with IB?
Like, what would you say? Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, actually, you have a lot of those components that you need to think about. And while you have the academic side of things, you always, as I mentioned in the beginning, need to keep in mind the other aspect, which is more about the real life and what you want to achieve using that academic knowledge. And when you choose your subjects, when you take certain the aspects or tests of the subjects you study, you always want to connect that to how will it be useful in the future and what I can do with those skills later.
All right. What do you think, Daniel? Accurate or inaccurate?
It is pretty accurate, I'd say, because like IB puts you out there. It really does like kind of makes you go out your comfort zone, that's for sure. And that's something that will help me in my future because my aspiration is to become an entrepreneur, of course, and going to university to just kind of do applied sciences more. And IB really does prepare you, first of all, for uni, the first year, or first 2 years even, that I've heard from other seniors. But other than that, just the fact that IB kind of puts so much workload, it kind of makes you more resilient to the stuff that's about to come in your life.
Great word. Resilient. Like that one.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, the IB has a very diverse selection of courses. You have 6 categories. You have the core. You're engaged in all of those aspects, and as Daniel's mentioned, it helps you to become more well-rounded in a way, and just be ready for almost anything that will come your way in university. And actually, for me, I liked Daniel's point about work. For me, looking back, one of the best parts of IB is actually the amount of work. You get to try so many new things. You get to explore so many different avenues and aspects of studying. You get to try and put your hands to everything you want. And by the end, you have a better understanding of what you like, what you don't like, what you want to focus on. So I think IB is a good holistic, as I mentioned earlier, it's a good holistic preparation for university.
I think I'd agree with you on that. I don't think I would have tried certain subjects if I hadn't been put into them in the IB. And I think I also learned very quickly which ones I liked to prioritize and which ones were my favorites, so to speak, right? And then there's the ones that you have to work extra hard for. And I think that perseverance or that resilience, I'm going to use your word, I'm going to steal it, is a really important thing, that if anything came out of my IB program was that. It's that ability to like, okay, it's not the worst thing. It's not like I have to go speak in front of 800 people, or I don't have to like, I don't know, write an IO the night before, or my IAs suddenly disappeared and I have to rewrite that, right? It kind of builds up those abilities. You guys have talked a lot about your goals, but where are we going with those goals? So you've mentioned you want to do entrepreneurial work. Where are you thinking right now? What kind of university or programs are you looking at?
Personally, right now, I mean, I've been to their summer school as well, so it kind of stems from there. I want to go to Bocconi in Milan, although it is quite some work to get there. It's 36 IB points without the 3 core. So, yeah. But looking optimistically, I hope I will get in. Yeah, it will kind of help me. Well, I've been there before. I just like the space. Everybody kind of is like-minded, and that's what really matters for me. And after that, just go do my own thing. Like right now, kind of starting a little bit business on the side hustles, etc. But once kind of school is over, then you could go in full time. That's what I want to do.
Okay. And what is it about like Bocconi's program that really like has you excited about that? Like I know you said there's like-minded people there, but in your research and even being there because you went in the summer, what was something that kind of stood out to you?
Because the teachers and the kind of professors themselves have like experience either working in like high position corporate jobs or actually starting their own startup. They also have this incubator which helps you kind of develop your startup idea and gives you investment, and overall kind of Bocconi has a lot of connections with other firms, and networking is really important for me as an entrepreneur, so that's definitely a big factor.
Interesting. Okay. And what about for you, Maxim? I know you've had throughout the year we've gotten lots of exciting news, but where are you going and what's made the decisions, or what's the experience been like now that you're on the other side of it?
Yeah, that's a good question. The university research and applications is a huge, long process, and I have done numerous hours of just searching for the right options, and you just have to consider many different aspects. For me, one of the main aspects that I looked at was the program. So my outside of school activities, IB work experience helped me to identify that I want to study marketing as my major. So that helped to have a filter of what to look for. And you really need those filters when you look for your option. And it can be location, it can be program, it can be all of those different aspects. So I ended up applying to the United States, England, and the Netherlands. And I'm still waiting for some IB results, but at the moment I'm looking at the United States options due to scholarship and overall just to have a new experience and try new things in a new place.
Did you find when you were applying to the United States that it was like the IB translated really easily when you were applying? Like it wasn't like you had to do extra things on top of it, or was it like, because I know in the past you had to do like the SATs and you had to do a whole bunch of other program things. Did you have to do that this year, or?
Yeah, actually, every year is different. This year, luckily, the SATs were not in place in many universities. But to answer your question, universities really like, and they explicitly mention that they enjoy seeing students coming from the IB. So that is another advantage of the IB program, that you're more recognized as a student. And in terms of the applications, the United States had a nice portal known as the Common App. It is quite convenient to have everything in one place. And in general, you can simplify, there are certain hacks to simplify your application process, such as choosing the right region, not the right region, but maybe the right application system, and just simplifying the process.
Okay. Some good tips there. So I heard you guys talking a lot about the programs and the academics part of it. Um, but university is a lot more than just academics, right? We spent time in this episode talking about kind of making sure we're balanced, making sure we've got, those extracurriculars. So when you're thinking about the university, is it just academics, or was it things like the culture of that university, its community, the cost, the reputation? What are some of those things that you think are important for you guys right now when you're thinking about those universities that you'll apply to? Cost, reputation, community, culture, academics, purely academics.
I'd say I'm not even as focused on the academics part of it because, well, it's a given in university, in my opinion. I'd say the reputation and mainly the community. Because, well, if you don't like where you are and you don't like your environment, then of course you're not going to like the whole experience. And in the future, you'd rather look back at university as a really good and fun experience where you met a lot of new people, interesting and all that stuff, rather than like a pain, or like a past or something that you didn't like, what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Do you think like the IB lets you build those communities though too? Like, do you feel like you have the ability to network through kind of what the IBs helped you develop, or was that something you had to develop outside?
No, definitely. I mean, both, I'd say, actually. Because, like, for my personal projects, but also because in IB, you're forced to collaborate a lot, group projects and all that stuff, even with people you necessarily don't like or don't prefer to. But that kind of teaches you to be more open-minded, which is one of the things that IB kind of advocates for, really. And yeah, another thing for the university, I'd say, is also the reputation. Because I think, me personally, like, I have two extremes. I usually do the extremes, this as a teacher. It's either I go or I don't go to university. And if I'm gonna go to university, then I'd say that go to a really good one, someone that has reputation that will and might open doors in the future, like career-wise and etc.
Okay. What do you think for you, Maxim, when you were applying? What was kind of the priority that you put on, or was there a different priority maybe that your parents put on when you were
Yeah,
looking?
as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of different aspects you need to consider, and there's a lot of research that you need to do. So it is good to have those filters to narrow down your scope of investigation.
Ooh, good words.
And yeah, one of those filters was location. You can initially choose or have a feeling where you want to live, where you want to spend the 4, 5, 3 years of university. And that's already putting a certain filter on the task. Then the program is, of course, important. This is something that you do, so it's already getting smaller. And other aspects that were important for me is, of course, the outside opportunities, such as the sports, the offerings, the community. And it is very individual, I would say. The activities that you have in high school transfer to your university, and based on those, you usually start to filter what you want to see in the university. So perhaps the closer you get to grade 12, you start to understand what you want to continue doing in your next year, and you keep those things while searching for your best option.
And what to avoid if you don't want to do it again. What do you think, Vivian? In your opinion, at this stage, grade 10, what are you looking at when you look at those universities in Korea?
Well, I would say like the reputation would be one of the priorities I will be looking at, but also like the quality of education and is it comfortable to go there, like transportation wise or the campus, like the environment really. Because I am still in the learning stage of our university application, so I don't know if what I'm looking at is right or wrong. I don't know what I should be prioritizing is right or wrong. But yeah, I should
I
learn.
get that. It's kind of tricky sometimes to figure out what's right, and I'm going to use that word loosely as your TOK teacher, um, and what to do with all these options because we don't usually get a lot of options. Like this is kind of like your first chance, right? You get to pick these IB courses, and you don't know if they're the right choices or not. You learn really quickly. But the same thing with university, right? You get all these choices for the first time, and like it can be overwhelming. It can be like, what am I doing? What's right? And there's actually no way of knowing till you get there. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add, it really resonates with me, the discussion we're having. For me, I have had multiple conversations with my parents and my family members, and even now, being at the end of this journey, you look back and you realize that you didn't know so many things that you know now, and there's no really wrong pathway. Everyone has their own journey, and you only know, as you mentioned precisely, that you have done something right or wrong once you get there. And looking back, there's so many things I would change in my application process, in my research process, and in my selections perhaps. But at the same time, you have to realize that the place where you're at now is the choice that you made, and it's a good choice. You can always try to improve and make things better, but you wouldn't know until you get there, and you just have to keep going during the process and just adapt to what you're seeing and what you're feeling.
Make the good choice for that moment.
Yes.
Right? And I think that that's a great way to kind of turn us into this last part here, which is kind of your final pieces of advice. So some of our people who are watching slash listening might be thinking about the IB or thinking about coming to an international school. Um, at the different stages you've been at and different programs you've been in and being at our school at ISR, what's some advice you would give for students who are thinking about our programs in our school?
I'd say not even biased, definitely also from an entrepreneurial perspective, do it because, well, you have an English speaking community which helps you in life a lot, right? You can communicate with anybody you meet practically. And also just like the way you learn and the way of like IB puts you out there, it gives you a lot of perspective and you're forced to be more open-minded, which again sets you up in life and in university later on. So I don't see a lot of drawbacks except only if you really like to procrastinate and don't care about your future.
What else do we think? What else of advice we would give to people who are considering ISR or the IBDP?
Yeah, I can say it might sound cliche or just very broad, but enjoying every moment is important. You will have those moments when you feel like it is too much, it is too difficult, you're overwhelmed, but at the same time, looking back now, those are the moments that you will remember, and those are the moments that you will think about in the future. So just embracing all the workload and just appreciating all the opportunities you have, being grateful for what you have, and just knowing that those experiences shape who you are in the future.
It's very well put.
I was going to say, that's really well put. So thank you guys very much for your time and your opportunity to give your voice. I know that that sometimes is very difficult to do, and for being a risk taker already, and being courageous and offering your opinions. We want to thank also for those of you who are listening and watching the Riga Edu-Cast on our student stories on strategies and support. And just kind of keep on doing what you're doing, keep the next year and things ahead. And we hope that you enjoyed this episode and that you look at the next one.